of how I learned the English language.
I'm not sure I understand.
Hello everyone, once again I'm Chow and welcome to our channel Just Because. I have been watching a couple of videos from YouTube about the journeys of people around the world seeking to improve their English speaking skills. And I would say I have met quite a few people stuck in the same predicament as mine. This is a topic I could say is very dear to me because as I was learning the English language, I found out that I became attached to the language way before I was old enough to call myself an adult. So growing up, I witnessed my dad's fondness of the English language, and he had this Scrabble book that's full of his writings. And I recall that I used to play Scrabble with him when I was a kid, and he would give me an extra 100 points prior to the game beginning. And that was quite generous, eh? I've seen him watch English movies time and time again. So in a nutshell, I would say that he's undeniably my greatest influence on my love of the English language.
Have an app named History. You can't search for it in the App Store.
Yes, Siri. So I was born and raised in Manila, and back in the day, I remember that my parents, specifically my dad, taught us to communicate with them in English. The English language that my dad taught us was not the traditional conversational English or the traditional conversational form native English speakers were taught. For example, when we'd like to pee, well, pardon me for this example, but I thought I'd pick this as my example because I find this quite funny to this day. So when we'd like to pee, we would use the word urinate instead of pee. We use perspiration instead of the word sweat. We use perspiring, of course, instead of the word sweating. You could imagine how Shakespearean our English was during that time. Nevertheless, I would say that in totality, it's the learning that mattered. And I continue to pride myself on learning every single day. I haven't thanked my parents yet for doing a great job teaching us the English language. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much, Dad and Mom. Because when I eventually became a mother, I also trained my son to speak English at an early age, and I may have taught him some Shakespearean and some conversational as well. So without further ado, let me delve into my journey to learning the English language. And please don't judge me if you'd notice that I am somewhat reading because I actually did prepare notes, so I won't get sidetracked into other trivial stuff. But if I still do though, please forgive me. The most important thing that I learned through my journey learning the English language is that you got to love the language. And yes, I began to feel that I love to learn the language. That is my core motivation I had right off the bat. When I was younger, then again, my dad taught us how to essentially speak basic English. At home, my parents spoke another dialect from their province, which I also understood and knew a little to speak. So they would speak to us in English, but I would hear them speaking in their own dialects. So I have this bit of a confusion back then because I don't know what to speak because I was a kid. While I was learning the language, I was then in my grade school that time. My dad's sister's family came to visit us. And for the first time, I was able to test my speaking skills with them. I felt pretty scared though, because to me, it felt like I was talking to some Hollywood actors who came into our house that time. My cousins spoke English as if they were the characters that I was watching from my favorite series, X-Files. And it's quite an interesting feeling because I know that they're my first cousins, but for some reason, I felt a bit hesitant to open my mouth because I was scared that I'm going to be laughed at, or if I make mistakes with my grammar and I say the words the wrong way. Well, that's just bits and pieces of my experiences, but here's the thing. Hearing my cousins speak English that way naturally incited something in me. I got that excitatory feeling, which then created the love of the language and the continuous quest to further my knowledge about the language. And you know what that feeling prompted me? I started listening to the pile of cassette tapes my mom used to have at that time. And whenever I get extra time, I would secretly play the tapes on. And I really paid attention to how words were being pronounced by the singer of her favorite band, The Carpenters. And man, she's articulate. She pronounced the lyrics of their songs so clearly. And then I thought, so I already listened to a lot of their songs repeatedly. Now what? Well, that kid in me who's getting curious was then becoming unstoppable, and I need to translate that urge to learn because I have that gut feeling that this could bring something good in the future. And I was not wrong because those became my foundation of learning the English language. What I did is I gathered my mom's tapes, listened to each one of them, and sorted out which ones were not as loved by my mom as she did The Carpenters. And that was only as far as I knew. I ended up recording my voice speaking English while I read my English books, overlaying some of my mom's favorite songs. And turns out I was wrong. And I got punished for having recorded my voice over songs which my mom actually loved. It was a funny learning process for me. This time and age though, there's no cassette tapes available anymore. But we live in an age where phones and state-of-the-art tools are present. Hence, we can use those at our own disposal. And if you are working on simply gaining the confidence to speak the language, you could probably record yourself speaking without the video, as I did when I recorded my voice through the cassette tapes. You could do that a couple days a week. But if you're working on public speaking, it's probably a good idea to film yourself with the video on. This is probably an underrated tip, but I for one can attest that this actually worked for me. And having to do these videos where I show myself like this made me a little bit more confident compared to when I did my first video over at this platform. Another thing that helped me through the process of learning the English language is that my dad encouraged us to write letters to our cousins who were already in the States. And one other thing I recall was that my dad picked safe people from our broadsheet newspapers who were actually looking for pen pals. He then picked one for my brother, and I waited and waited for my turn, but it never happened. Well, it's probably that my dad got a little too busy with more important things than at what I was waiting for, and that's totally okay and completely understandable. So what I did was I started to help myself, honing my writing skills by composing essays and writing my diary in English. And I would then go to my dad and have him check to see what needed improvement and if my grammar went awry or something. I also started to learn to play guitar several years after, because when I sing, I am able to pronounce words without the pressing problem of looking for an English conversation partner. Sometimes, when you're motivated to learn something, one thing leads to another, and it's all good. I became fairly resourceful because I wanted to better myself when it comes to speaking and writing English. My dad had a bunch of magazines given to him by my aunt, and whenever I'm not exhausted doing all the homeworks, I would sit down and browse and start reading them. But to be honest, those magazines are a little bit of an overkill for me, because when I read them, I have to have a dictionary handy for me for those highfalutin words I encounter. And well, as far as reading is concerned, I have this special friend. She passed at a very young age. Her name is Mary Rose, and she introduced me to Archie's and Friends. And that, I have to say, was my absolute legacy from her, which I will always be thankful for. So thank you, Mary Rose. Fast forward to this day, I would say I still continue to look for ways where I can improve my English skills, my speaking skills to be exact, and my writing as well. Mostly the confidence to speak publicly, as I am doing right now, meaning showing my face to all of you while speaking. You wouldn't believe me, but this is a torture to me. When I occasionally run into words where I have problems pronouncing because my tongue is still used to the way those words were pronounced back in my country, I write them down and I pronounce them a couple times. No, gazillion times. While I'm in the bathroom and where I could mask my monotonous sound with the pitter-patter of the shower. I didn't mean to rhyme, sorry. It did not necessarily follow, though, that what worked for me would automatically work for you. But laying down these experiences, though, it could possibly stem one personal practice where you could work on for yourself. Whatever works best for you. I have been clear right off the bat that my mother tongue is not English, but because my family has been given this amazing opportunity to spend the rest of our lives in an English-speaking country, I, together with my family, am embracing my love of this language. And I hope that by sharing a little bit of my experience learning to speak the English language could help people out there who are struggling, because if I was able to do this, you could do this too. And I have to put it out there that I am a firm believer that it's only when one says he or she already knows everything is where learning stops. Let's keep finding ways to better ourselves, not in competition with others, but ultimately to help ourselves reach the better version of us. So keep at it, my friends. One last but not the least tip. My husband has also helped me in many ways, more than one, when he gave me a neat heads up about some common pronunciation mistakes he made back when he was fairly new in town. Few of those words are comforter, temperature, pants, spinach, salmon, and some courteous phrases he thought I needed to be aware of so I won't commit the same mistakes he did. There's a lot of words that I was able to crack, and it was an exciting feeling to be able to learn how to pronounce them correctly. And I don't know, I might have to curate another video about all of those. You know, it's tough being misunderstood in a conversation, and sometimes quite embarrassing. But hey, we are all a work in progress here. So my husband knows that I'm so over the moon thankful for all the things that he shared with me and he taught me way before we came here. And if you would be motivated to work on something to be better on that something, I think the result would be quite phenomenal. And we hope to see you on our next video. So that's pretty much about it. Wherever you are, keep at it. May you have an amazing day, all of you. God bless you all, and thank you very much for sticking around. I hope this video could help a lot of people. If you have questions, just write down in the comments below, and I would do my best to reply to those comments, and I would surely appreciate all those actually.